Hey everyone, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for helping me reach 100 subscribers. I honestly couldn't have done this without your love, support, and constant encouragement. Every like, comment, and subscribe means a lot to me. Now let's keep this journey going. Our next target is 200 subscribers, and I know we can do it together. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow as a family. Thank you once again. When a strange illness begins destroying Luffy from the inside, whispers start spreading, that his blood is poisonous, that he was never meant to live long, that he's more monster than man. But to the Straw Hats, he isn't a curse or a danger. He's their captain, their friend, their family. As Luffy's condition worsens and the pain becomes unbearable, the crew is forced to confront fear, doubt, and the possibility of losing the one person who brought them all together. Zoro stands at his side, refusing to let him fall. Nami, Usopp, Sanji, Chopper. Each of them fights in their own way to protect the boy who saved them first. Because no matter what runs through his veins, Luffy is theirs, and they are not letting him go down without a fight. A disclaimer. This story do not belong to me. The author is What Was in the Blood by Lodowa Korona. Respect to author.
Chapter 7. Loose your sight trapped on hostile islands. Luffy landed on the strange ship and stared. He saw an odd twinkle in the eyes of strangers, but he wasn't going to question it. Who would suspect anyone who could give them meat? Oi, Scarf Guy and Big Awesome, he said impatiently. Did you hear me? I asked if you had any meat. The Big Awesome twitched. He answered him with a rather disturbing look, while his companion snickered. Luffy didn't understand what was so funny. Hey, are you deaf, both of you? He snapped. He wasn't in the mood for games. He was hungry, tired and away from his friends. You have any meat or not? The strangers didn't seem offended by his attitude. The biggest man continued to look at him strangely, while the Scarf Guy flashed a sly grin. Maybe, he hummed. Would you like some, little boy? I am not little, Luffy barked. That man had a nerve. He didn't even look that much older than Luffy himself. He was however much taller and muscular, with very tanned skin that looked brown in the light of a single lamp. He had violet hair and lots of jewelry. His characteristic feature was silky material tied around his head, with a triangle part covering his forehead. On both of its sides were long, silky straps, which were flowing over the man's back. The second guy seemed much older. He was bulky, bald and surrounded by dangerous aura. Luffy had seen lots of similar brutes before, so he wasn't intimidated. What, you don't want to share meat? He guessed from their silence. Fine, he added with disappointment. But it's very rude of you. You stinky greedy bastards. As the bald man got visibly pissed, the rich-looking guy burst out with laughter. Oh, I like you. He decided. My dear boy, I would take you out for dinner anytime you want. But believe me that it's you who wouldn't like to share meat with us, he snickered. Luffy raised at him one eyebrow. He didn't understand why would ever pass on meat. Well, on the other hand, the jewelry man added. He bowed to the pirate with mocking expression. Please, be our guest. Who are we to refuse such an intriguing creature? Just tell us, if we might inquire, what exactly are you? Inquire, Luffy repeated. He tilted his head in a questioning manner. I don't know what you mean. Are you asking for my name? Just call me Luffy. Luffy. The tanned male rolled his name on his tongue. He flashed a grin to his companion, one that was answered with a raise of eyebrows. The violet-haired man looked back at the raven. Cute, isn't he, Vladir? I don't care, Vladir said. He had deep, rough voice, one that could give shivers to any lesser man. Luffy, obviously, was not affected. Does that mean I get meat? He asked hopefully. He ignored that awful, cute, remark and decided that they were indeed very nice men, because everyone with free food was nice in his opinion. Of course, the tanned guy assured. He turned towards door that led inside, one that was located at the top of high stairs. He leaned with a repeated bow and presented way with a humble move of his hands. You first, if you allow. And call me Leon. We are friends now, aren't we? Sure, the raven answered. He smiled and happily marched in front of the two. He was in a good mood again. He walked to the stairs, humming a random song and swinging tail to the beat. He had one leg on the first step when, wait, did you hear that? He asked. There were murmurs. Luffy's carefree tune died down and he stepped back, twisting head right and left. He squinted his eyes at surrounding darkness. He had a strange impression of being watched. He looked around, but he could only distinguish shapes of barrels, crates and possibly cages, just barely picking them out from stuff under staircase. Wait, why were they cages? The boy turned to the others. He was about to ask, when an eerie whisper came again. It sounded like hissed out words. The straw hat wearer looked at his two companions. They were both standing where he left them, doing nothing, saying nothing. They were only looking at him strangely. "Did you hear that?" he repeated. They didn't answer. Unnerved, the boy was about to say something else, when a whisper came clearer than before. "Get it, get it." Luffy looked around. There was no mistaking he heard it. "Get it, get it, get the prey we are seeing," something said. The pirate frowned. Prey, what were those voices talking about? He assumed that it was Leon or Vladir playing jokes on him, but their lips didn't move one bit. So who could be speaking? He tried to search the area once more. He swept his gaze over barrels, crates, cages, chain. He gasped. He noticed what he was missing from the beginning. They weren't alone anymore. Somewhere during conversation other people gathered below the stairs, almost invisible in shadows. Or were they there before? Why didn't his hockey pick up their presence? The rubber boy took an apprehensive step back. He crossed his gaze with incomers, with their narrowed, unnerving eyes, gleaming just the slightest bit in the darkness. Who are those people? When did they get here? He called out to Leon and Vladir. There was no answer. "Oi, you, what's going on here?" Luffy yelled. He hated how the stairs were crawling all over his body. Those stairs were unsympathetic and somehow hungry, as if he was meat for the taking. "Stop looking at me like that, damn it." The shadow people only smiled at his turmoil. Luffy heard a chuckle behind him, so he turned around and glared at Leon and Vladir. "Something the matter?" the tanned man asked. His tone was full of dark mirth. "That's my line," Luffy growled. "Who are those people? And why are you getting all weird and freaky? I thought we were going to eat, but what?" Leon repeated. His expression was deceivingly innocent. "We promised you a meal. And we will stick to the words of gentlemen. Don't you agree, Vladir? How does a main course of Little Lost Birdie sound?" "I don't know, Leon," the bald man answered. His eyes narrowed, never leaving the small pirate. "Birds are good for the main course. But I prefer them for dessert." "Dessert?" Leon licked his lips in a disgusting manner. "Maybe you were right. Especially," he locked his gaze with Luffy's, "when birds are as sweet as you." It was enough of a warning for Luffy to get the hell out of there. But the moment he unfolded his wings, something grabbed his ankle. He fell hard on the desks. Dazed, he crawled on his elbows and sent a startled look backwards. There was a chain wrapped around his leg. He reached to pull it and yelped, seeing as the nearest end suddenly morphed into a snake. The creature gave a low hiss. Its scaly head twisted 3 times around its axis, curving its mouth in an ugly snarl. It seemed to be grinning at the boy's misfortune. "Wah! Get off me!" Luffy shrieked. He kicked at it with his second leg and felt its hold loosen. He got up quickly, not wasting any time. There were 8 men already on him. He swept them with Gomu Gomu no whip and smacked away hands, which were trying to grab him from other side. He jumped out the reach of another 3 attackers and ran to the stairs. He quickly got on the top. He was about to try taking off again, when a bulky man surprised him and rammed into his abdomen. They rolled down the steps, tangled in a heap of bodies. Luffy grunted. He hit floor with his back, which disoriented him for a second. 4 men immediately piled up on his stomach, trying to hold him down. He managed to get his legs free, yanking them fiercely upwards, and dug his knees into the attackers' bodies. They fell off him with surprised cries. "Oh!" Vladir raised one eyebrow. "So little birdie has strength behind these bony limbs. How delightful," Leon piped. His sing-song voice made Luffy shiver. "The more fun for us, it means." The rubber pirate got up to a standing position. Before he made even single step, there was a click on his left.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
He came face to face with a barrel of a gun. He had a reassuring thought flashing through his mind that a bullet would bounce off, but then he heard warning bells going off instead. He jumped to the side in the last second. It was still too late, and pain exploded in his shoulder. "See stone bullets. Stop. Don't kill him," Vladir roared. Luffy didn't look back. He started running like mad, knowing he had poor chances against so many people. He was still weak and his hockey didn't seem to be working. "Out of the way," he shouted, knocking down 3 opponents. He put distance between himself and the others, climbing stairs in zigzag. He didn't want to get another bullet. He was about to jump over the railings, when he registered movement on his right. "Prey, Min," came a savage hiss. Luffy ducked. The chain-like snake flew past him, sinking fangs in wall. It snapped wood like a cracker and dropped to the ground, where it squirmed in fury. "SSS's. Catch eat." It screeched after the boy. Luffy was already leaping over the railings. He felt a sudden pressure on his tail and yelped in pain, slipping from the barrier. There was a haggard guy gripping his tail at its base. The man cried out, surprised when he was pulled along with the falling pirate. They came plummeting down to the ocean. Luffy instantly switched their positions and bounced off of his attacker, using him as his footing. He unfolded wings in the very last second. His heart soared with freedom and he flew, away from the hunters. The man crashed into the water and a wall of liquid rose before the pirate, who pierced it in a spin. His energy was dropping. He tried to ignore it, and his wings hoisted him higher and higher. Arg! He shrieked. He didn't expect a bullet that hit his thigh. Those bastards. Luffy huffed out. He felt himself lose height. He desperately fluttered his uncoordinated wings, but it was in vain. All screams were soon covered by deafening snaps of branches as Luffy fell through the trees, crashing onto the island. He lost consciousness in seconds. Chapter 8. Scream when no one can hear you. The first thing Luffy became aware of was the ringing. It was a constant, high-pitched and annoying noise that refused to go away. It didn't matter how much he turned his head and tried to press his ears to the ground. He moaned, trying to cover them with his hands instead. That's when the pain came. The boy gave a strangled gasp. His right arm throbbed in protest, pain so intense and sharp that he immediately lowered it down. He groggily noticed similar ache in his left thigh and an awful stinging all over his wings. Why was he hurting? Oh, right. He hazily remembered flying away from some crazy people, getting shot, and falling down. Was he on an island, then? Luffy rubbed his uninjured hand against his eyelids. He was annoyed that each of them seemed to weigh a ton. It was a struggle before he pried them open. He heavily blinked, blanching as the world spun around and shapes blurred into swirls of colors. It took a few moments before it stopped. Ugh, where am I? He wondered out loud. The only thing in sight were trees, towering, massive things that covered the sky and buried the forest in shadow. Luffy couldn't tell if it was still night or if the sun had already risen. He heaved a tired sigh. He pushed himself off the ground, weakly sitting up. As the ringing in his ears diminished at last, he took note that there was no other sound. No animals' cries reached him, nor the rustling of leaves in the wind. There was simply silence. That's weird, Luffy mumbled. He tried not to pay it too much attention. It was disturbing, especially when he grew up in a jungle and associated it with all sorts of noises. There were, however, more important things at the moment. He carefully stretched out his legs, checking on a bullet wound. He then proceeded to his shoulder and lastly his wings. It seemed that they got slashed by trees, branches and had ugly rips in its membrane. Ouch, Luffy whimpered. He outlined a particularly bad tear with his finger. It was obvious that he wouldn't be flying anytime soon. Ow. He grimaced when a vicious, guttural growl reverberated from his stomach. Now I'm hungry, too. He wondered if it was because of skipped meals or sea stone bullets that he felt so lifeless. It was like there was a hole in him sucking up all energy. He felt exhausted and sluggish. I wonder when my friends will come and get me. Maybe I should try walking, he muttered. He sighed, not feeling up for the challenge. He knew there was little else he could do. It might be days before his friends would find him on this random island. And there was always a possibility of coming across meat. Yosh, let's go. He grinned, convinced at the prospect of meat. He stood up. It immediately became clear that placing weight on his injured leg was an extremely bad idea. The boy cried out and swayed, managing to prevent his fall by grabbing the nearest tree. He leaned onto it with his right arm, which was also not the best idea, since it happened to be his wounded arm. Luffy gritted his teeth as the abused limb screamed from the activity. He quickly loosened his hold and let himself drop to the ground. Ow, ow, ow. He hissed. He slowly collected himself back up. How do I walk like this? And, where do I go? No matter which way he turned, there were only trees. They were incredibly thick and tall, soaring more than 30 feet into the sky. He couldn't tell how high they actually reached, as at some point they became invisible behind a net of branches. They appeared almost black, the darkness of the forest making their massive shapes ominous and overwhelming. Undergrowth was absent. There was only bare, hard ground stretching endlessly all around him. But the strangest was the silence. It still disturbed him. Unnatural and somehow threatening, it was pressing on the boy's eardrums an increasing uncomfortable twist in his stomach. He tried to break it and yelled out some random words. He was disappointed when all sounds faded away, restoring the abnormal, unchanging stillness. Luffy frowned. He was seriously starting to hate this place. Might as well just go ahead, he mumbled. He ripped his sash and tied straps around the bullet wounds. It was rough as a dressing, but the best he could afford. He then picked a random direction and started limping through the woods, balancing his weight with the use of his tail. It was a struggle to keep moving. Sweat dripped into Luffy's eyes and his breath turned rugged and labored. There also appeared a familiar, metallic smell that was growing stronger with every minute. Luffy thought it was his injuries bleeding. He ignored it and concentrated on placing one leg in front of the other. He had no means of telling how long this torture lasted. It was after what felt like ages before one thing interrupted the agonizing monotony. There was a splash. Luffy froze in mid-step, looking down in surprise. There was the faintest glow at the bottom of his feet. He slowly bent down, careful not to strain his injuries, and gently touched what appeared to be liquid. A heavy smell made him gag. It was more pronounced now that Luffy was leaning down, and the definitely wet trail made the rubber man alert. Cautious, he moved to follow the blood, noticing how with his every step the stench grew stronger. He immediately regretted the lack of light. He could only see dark shapes of trees and unidentified objects. Dread increasingly pulled into his stomach. His gut was twisting, telling him to turn back. He almost listened, when, after about 300 feet, he stumbled over the first body. Luffy's shriek was loud and panicked. He quickly crawled away from the unidentified animal's corpse, whose bulging, unseeing eye appeared to be staring right through him. He was forced to a stop as his back met with another object. Luffy's breath hitched. He didn't need to turn around to guess into what he bumped. The sudden wave of putrid, repulsive odor confirmed his concerns. Dreading what he was about to see, he slowly looked back. Corpses. Piling in a large, vast heap, they seemed to be stretching to the sky like some morbid tower. Blood seeped onto the ground, spilling terror all around. The captain's arms, feet, and back were already soaked with it due to his collision. But what was even more horrifying were the muzzles, creatures' jaws, open and twisted, as if frozen in endless cries of terror. Luffy swallowed. His heart was beating faster as he began stumbling backwards, intent on trying to gain as much distance as possible. He didn't get far, though. There was somebody else standing behind him. Chapter 9. Hope a friend will be the first to find you. Where are you? Just where are you, Luffy? Nami whispered. She was standing on Sunny's lion head, looking intently over the horizon. It has been an hour since Luffy's disappearance. They were on course in the same direction in which Luffy headed, or at least the same in which Nami saw him go. She was desperately hoping that he didn't turn around. They had no other leads. That annoying idiot, she cursed. She couldn't help feeling anxious. She guessed it was impossible to keep flying for so long, but she refused to assume that Luffy fell into water and drowned. She hoped that he came across a stray ship or an island, but the chances weren't good. On the other hand, apart from devil fruit abilities and demonic looks, Luffy possessed devil's luck as well. That thought made Nami smile. Robin, she addressed the older woman. How is it going? Do you see anything? Robin stayed silent for a moment. She was using her powers to make a giant hand with an eye in its middle, at least 3 times larger than the crow's nest. It was surveying the area, equipped with a big spyglass made by Frankie and Usopp. Not yet, she replied softly. Nami's heart dropped. She knew that Robin would have immediately told her if she noticed anything, but Navigator was still heavily disappointed. Oh, she whispered. It's all right, she added after a pause. She wasn't sure whom she was trying to reassure, the older woman or herself. Maybe others had more luck. The archaeologist's face was unreadable. Yes, let's hope they did, she said to her friend. Nami smiled. She knew she wasn't the only one worried. Even Zoro took White Rocking Horse and set to look for Luffy, along with Chopper and Usopp on Mini Mary. They were trying to cover the area that Robin had troubles with, as nighttime increased possibility of missing their captain on the background of wide, dark ocean. Brook and Sanji were there as well. The cook was running above water in his sky walk, with the skeleton in his soul form. Frankie wanted to take the shark submerge and help, but seeing as there was no real need for a submarine, Luffy didn't drown. Damn it, he stayed aboard Sunny. They kept their search for more than an hour. The cyborg was surprised when Mini Mary unexpectedly returned to the ship. Whoa, he exclaimed. What it is, guys? Some good news? He asked, noticing their bright expressions. You bet, Usopp shouted. I had a brilliant idea. My outstanding brain came up with solution too. We will ask the turtles. Chopper cut in hurry. They can spread the word in the ocean and search for Luffy. Someone must have seen him, I'm sure of it. What do you think? Maybe those seals would agree as well, Usopp offered. Sounds like a plan, Nami decided, standing beside Frankie. Can you do that, Chopper? I'll try my best, but, the reindeer's face suddenly fell. It's really strange. I can't manage to communicate with seals at all. But Luffy was talking with them earlier. I cannot explain how. You can't. Everybody was surprised. And Luffy did. The redhead added, disbelieving. What are you saying, Chopper? Well, the reindeer hesitated, concern in his eyes. Tonight, when I was checking on Luffy's condition, he mentioned about the snails, saying some depressing stuff and making him uneasy. I was pretty confused back then. Exclamation mark. Why didn't you tell us sooner? Nami was quickly getting angry. Oh, Zoro knew, the reindeer said, as if that explained everything. Anyway, I can't figure it out. Maybe it's those seals that are different, but there may be something going on with Luffy that we don't know about. What? It doesn't matter if those beasts are like normal animals, the sniper argued. Humans talking with random creatures aren't typical either. I see. Matters are more complicated than I believed, Robin declared. She appeared beside Frankie and leaned against the railings. Complicated? What do you mean, Robin? Nami asked in confusion. Well, I find it truly strange, she muttered. Luffy's metamorphosis, voices only he can hear, sudden arrival of the Guardians of Death. It's not a normal occurrence, even in the New World. I was trying to search for explanations in our books, but there was nothing similar to Luffy's case. That's why I turned to the third element of the puzzle. Seal's arrival. Chopper tried to guess. The archaeologist nodded. It may very well be a coincidence, she warned, yet I can't help to wonder.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, Hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Why did they appear here in the first place? It's true that they protect animals, but they are not known to guide them. I believe it's the turtles that keep close to them, not the other way around. How is that important? Usopp didn't understand. As I said, Death Guardians do not show without a reason, Robin reminded. Despite their hatred for humans, they chose to keep close to Sunny. Why is that? I mentioned that wherever the seals of fate go, a tragedy will follow. It's their power to foretell doom, but not to bring it. However, her expression turned grave. I don't like how their attention is set on Luffy. I fear that he might be in great danger, she revealed, and the Straw Hats paled at her words. Then, we must find Luffy quick, Nami exclaimed. I'll ask Turtles for help. Chopper decided and hopped behind the steer. Usopp, let's go. Why yeah, the sniper agreed. They hurriedly directed Minnie Mary to the other side of Sunny, where animals were gathered. Nami, Robin and Frankie moved to the other side as well, watching as the reindeer leaned from the boat and waved to the reptiles. The creatures distrustfully swam closer, while the seals of fate turned to the humans with their blank, fish-like gazes. So, the little doctor asked. He hastily explained situation to the turtles and awaited their reply. What do you say? His hopeful face fell when he was met with a series of groans and grunts. What? You say you cannot help. But why? He yelled. You seem to like Luffy as well. Why won't they do anything? Usopp panicked. He stood up and the seals hissed, agitated by his movement. They are scared, the doctor explained. They refused to swim through these waters again. They said that they were passing a nearby island for their mating season, but something horrible happened. An island, Nami whispered. Horrible. A ship docked, the reindeer translated, when one reptile started to make noises again. Hunters came. They captured several of the land's beasts, then slayed everything else. The Straw Hats stiffened at the news. Turtles won't come, Chopper repeated. They won't swim even close to that place, ever again. But, the sniper stammered out. It's bullshit. Luffy needs us as well, and they don't owe him anything, Usopp, Nami reminded from above. Her tone was defeated. It was just a crazy idea. If those creatures won't help us, we will find Luffy on our own. Yeah, Frankie agreed. No, wait. Chopper silenced them, his eyes going large when he continued to listen to the reptiles. What? I don't believe it. How is that possible? What are they saying, Chopper? Usopp asked, worried and surprised by his behavior. It's terrible. The reindeer exclaimed. The seals of fate tried to protect the island and fought against those people, but they were almost no match. Only the turtles managed to escape. He turned his agonized gaze to Usopp. What if those hunters are still around? If they managed to drive the seals off when we had a hard time doing so, they are obviously strong. And searching for rare creatures. What if they find Luffy? When he is still recovering and exhausted? What will they do? Chopper's words slowly sank in. A cold, nauseating dread spread among the humans. What would ruthless hunters do to weakened, trusting Luffy? What indeed? Everyone, Nami called out, grasping railings in a desperate hold. Go back to searching. We must get to Luffy quick. But how? Usopp panicked. We have been looking for him for 2 hours now and we have no idea. Maybe we do, the reindeer interrupted. He was intently staring at the seals, which got very loud and started swimming in agitated circles. Did they understand us? Frankie wondered. Perhaps they know where Luffy is, Robin assumed. She watched as 6 beasts broke away from the group and headed in one direction. Nami felt more and more confused. Why would they help us? Can we even trust them? We should try. It's a bet as good as any, the cyborg said. Oh, enough of this. We don't really have any other choice, do we? Nami growled. It's decided. We will follow them and fast. Don't forget it's Luffy we are talking about, and he always finds trouble. I bet 1 million belly, the navigator added in thought, that he already did. He is probably running into the enemy right at this very moment. Meanwhile, on the unnamed island. Hello, little birdie. Did you miss us? The hunter whispered into Luffy's ear. Chapter 10. Become a prey to your hunter. Luffy jerked upwards. He moved as quickly as he could, jumping forward and twisting around in midair. He landed on his uninjured leg, between the heap of bodies and his opponent. Leon flashed a wicked smile. What is it? He asked, showing a mocking expression. I thought you would be happy to see me. Aren't we friends, after all? What do you want from me? Luffy growled. His eyes darted around, searching for other enemies. There was, however, no one else to be seen. And what the hell happened here? The boy added, distressed by the sight of corpses. Oh, nothing. The violet-haired man yawned. Just a small game. Game, Luffy repeated. His voice was hollow. He felt cold, sticky blood trickle down his back. Just, a hunting, a deep voice clarified. Luffy's heart skipped a beat. His eyes flashed to his right, where Vladimir appeared out of nowhere. The man started walking towards him. He was carrying a small, swinging lantern, which was casting an eerie, silvery glow over his figure. He was expressionless. The boys lurched, realizing that he didn't hear him coming. You see, Leon said, not even looking at his companion, we are only doing our job. We take what is rare and make sure it stays rare. Luffy tensed. He prepared to attack when Vladimir stepped even closer. His breaths got shallow, quickened. Fatigue and adrenaline were wreaking his body and he fought not to faint. The bigger man stopped. They were 6 feet apart. Look, he commanded. He raised his lantern and illuminated the morbid, bloody heap. Luffy tried to keep his eyes glued to the other male, but curiosity won and he stole a glance at the pile. Engulfed in silvery light, animals appeared blue and swollen. Dozens pairs of eyes seemed to be set on the boy, as if cursing him, blaming. Luffy turned around. The image, however, was already burned into his mind. It's a job, like I said, Leon said, reading his expression. We captured every exotic creature this land had to offer. And then, we killed everything else. He added with joy. 7 species, Vladimir filled in. 7 beasts. And how much fun it was. The jewelry man clasped his hands and twirled around. Wish you saw them fighting. But they never stood a chance. Vladimir tracked down every single one with his ability and... Why? The straw hat wearer asked. The bald man returned his gaze. For money, he answered. Yeah, Leon agreed. When beasts we sell are the only ones of its kind, they go for higher price. And these were already exotic. Luffy's hands curled into fists. He started violently shaking, but not from fear or exhaustion. You are sick, he whispered. Leon stopped dancing. He measured him with a long, assessing gaze, noticing the boy's rigid posture. Why? He asked. His demeanor turned strangely serious. Do you feel sorry for those we killed? Or for those we captured? You really shouldn't. After all, he smiled sweetly, you'll be joining them soon enough. Luffy barely had time to react. He stepped aside to avoid a knife, placing weight on his wounded leg. It buckled under him and he swayed, blanching in agony. The jewelry man twisted around. He attacked in a lightning speed, this time aiming with his bare arm. The boy let it bounce off him and flew with momentum, hitting a nearby tree. He gritted teeth in pain. The rough bark scraped against his wings, making his gashes sting. He blinked tears away, straining to see an upcoming blow. He dropped to the ground, just as a blade pierced the place where his right shoulder previously was. He rolled away and sprang back to his feet. Oh, little birdie still lively, Leon teased. Not for long. Luffy didn't see it coming. A well-placed kick dug in his ribcage, lifting him in air and making the world spin. The boy landed heavily in a puddle of blood. He started coughing like mad, spitting out dirt and chunks of flesh. Oh, the violet-haired man smirked. He rubbed his knee, with which he scored the hit, and viewed it in fascination. You a rubber man, as I thought. What happened with your appearance, Straw Hat Luffy? I don't remember wings, horns or a tail on any of the photos. Did you survive another fruit or is what people say true? You know, devil's powers, dragon's son, demon himself. Luffy said nothing. He crept backwards, keeping low to the ground. His arm and leg were throbbing and world was turning off and back in color, but he tried to ignore it. He turned his gaze from Leon to Vladimir. He noticed how the latter remained in the same spot, as if not willing to fight. What? Leon said, noticing where the boy was looking. He pursed his lips in an unhappy pout. You think that my friend is a threat? I can take you on alone, birdie. You are in no condition to win. Luffy measured him with a glare. He knew, however, that it was the truth. He could tell his opponents were skilled. There was also no way of judging if more enemies weren't hiding in the forest. He was on his own, tired, bloodied and cornered. He wouldn't last through a fight. Let's make it fair, Leon offered, but his sly grin made it clear that, fair, wasn't what he meant. He started walking in a wide arch, looking at the boy from underneath long, violet bangs and headbands triangle. My friend here has a gift. He is like a snake charmer, see. But he charms whatever he is close to. Be it animal, marine force or a small, defenseless pirate worth a belly. He winked at the boy, who fought down shivers. Vladimir, the man continued, can just sit back and relax, when his prey drives itself crazy. His presence shuts senses down, one by one. It starts with the sixth sense. You can call it, someone is behind me instinct, or observant hockey, however you want. It makes it harder to think. You are confused. You suddenly feel fear, even though you had been a powerful, invisible creature seconds before. And then you fall deeper, Leon whispered. He made a sinister expression. You lose the sound. You don't hear an attack coming, you don't hear people gathering under a staircase, you don't hear when an enemy stands behind you. You taste dread on your tongue. Your mouth turns dry and you try to swallow saliva that isn't there, gulping when a hunter towers above you. You look into his eyes. And you know you can't run. Leon turned to the boy. He measured him with piercing gaze. How is that, to be our prey? He asked with curiosity. Luffy willed his legs to stop trembling. He straightened despite the pain, and answered firmly. Like hell I would know. Leon roared with laughter. He punched the tree he was closest to, piercing it with a knife he still had in his hand. Ah ha ha, I love your guts. He cried out. Can we please keep him, Vladimir? He cracks me up. The other man said nothing. It's true, Leon added, that Vladimir has yet to perfect his ability. He can't take away everything at once. It's a process. It takes time to use on humans, but it's easy enough to make wild beasts dumb. I wish you saw them running to us like cute puppies. Killing them like that was almost no fun. But it's great watching humans. I love those we sell as slaves, I love them madly. I love how in lucid moments they beg to be sold away, or thrown into the sea, anything to get away. They can't stand the presence of dear Vladimir and they go crazy. They trash around in their little cages, yelling in fear and anger. And then they become a blabbering mess on the floor. Sick with terror, devoid of senses, trapped in delusions of their messed up minds. I can't get enough. It's so worth waiting. He smiled sweetly. Luffy blanched, feeling his insides twist. But I can do stuff as well, Leon exclaimed, happy like a child. He caressed the numerous ornaments he was wearing. I'm Hunter fruit user. I turn plants, animals or specific objects into tools for hunting. Remember our chain snake? Or, let's see. He turned to the nearest tree and touched it. Luffy watched with uncomfortable, sickening feeling as it moved and brought a colossal branch down. It smacked the ground with a vicious thump. There was a wide, deep dent left in its stead. Luffy held his breath. He stiffly wiped his face from the animal's blood, which was spluttered by the strike. Leon left fluids on his own face to dry. Lovely, isn't it? He asked. He knew fully well what such power meant, in a forest, to a pirate unable to run. Oh, but don't worry. He gave a lazy shrug. We don't plan to smear you on the ground. We will capture you whole and sound. Vladimir gave a low grunt. Liar, he said to his companion. The violet-haired man flashed a smile. He put the knife back in its case, where it was attached to his belt. He then took off 4 bracelets from each arm and started to circle them around his fingers, with swift, easy movements. Well, he whispered, maybe not whole. And definitely not sound. But hush, my pretty birdie. A little bleeding here and there won't be bad. Luffy glared. Like I'll let you touch me, he growled. That's fine if you fight, Leon replied. He stopped the bracelets all at once. It simply means more fun. Luffy dodged when 3 gold circles were thrown at him. He didn't know what they could do against his rubber body, but his doubts were quickly answered when jewelry morphed, landing as thick, barbed chains where he just stood. They didn't stay on the ground, however. All 3 moved like snakes and rushed after him, clanking wildly. Leon gave a crazy laugh. He released 5 more bracelets. They rolled at Luffy at incredible speed. He jumped over them and they hit a tree behind him, where they wrapped around its trunk. They tightened, snapping the bark with a crack. Luffy didn't stop to look. He charged on Leon, but the man stepped aside with ease. The boy wasn't done. He let the momentum carry him and he span around, smacking his opponent with spiked wings. The violet-haired man cried out in pain. He caught the wing with a tight grip, trying to pry it away and dislodge spikes from his back. Luffy used this moment and whipped his tail at his knees. Leon, having lost his footing, fell on the ground. Luffy gasped when he unexpectedly fell right with him. He landed on top of the bigger man, who instantly circled arms around his torso. There was sudden pressure around Luffy's throat. He clasped at the material-like object, which was tightening around his neck, and tried to pry it away. The moment he raised his hands, however, they were caught in a crashing hold. The boy started kicking. He tried to look at the thing that kept him captive, dizzily peeking from narrowed eyelids. He recognized it as a headband. He saw the long, silky material circle his wrists and bound them together. It was also what continued to choke him and pressed against his mouth, stiffing desperate, shallow breaths he tried to take. Hey, Leon grunted beneath him. He readjusted his grip on the boy, making him immobile. What is it? Little birdie can't fight off a big, scary wolf. Luffy narrowed his eyes. He wrenched his head backwards and was rewarded with a shocked, horrified scream when his horns sunk in flesh. Gia, you son of a bitch. Leon roared. He rolled their bodies and climbed over Luffy, keeping him pressed to the ground. There were bracelets turned chains coiling behind him, rising on one end and twisting in fury. Think you're untouchable, the man growled. He reached to his belt, where a long, curled knife was placed. He bared his teeth in a vicious snarl. There was dark blood flowing from his temple, where horns made shallow holes. Luffy's eyes crossed on their own. He breathed heavily through his nose when a blade grazed his face. The scarf-like material on Lion's head, which was still wrapped around the boy's hands and neck, suddenly tightened. Luffy felt how his lungs were cut off air. He started trashing like never before, twisting and fighting to throw the offender off. He lifted his wings and tried to strike once again, but chain bracelets moved faster and strapped them to the ground. He couldn't attack. He soon drained the energy to move and laid still, wheezing on the ground. Had enough? The man asked. He pressed on the boy's chest, making it deflate even further. Luffy made a strangled, wailing noise, which was muffled by the gag. So much trouble. You better be worth it. Leon raised the knife. Vladimir silently stood behind him. He watched as Luffy struggled with neutral expression. There was no mercy, no empathy in his eyes. I have enough of your bad behavior, Leon whispered. He caressed Luffy's cheek in a mocking attempt of comfort, then he broke the contact and leaned back. He smiled at the view. Don't worry, you won't run away or fight ever again. Cutting tendons in your legs and arms should solve the problem. Buyers wouldn't mind, would they? He asked, drinking terror in Luffy's eyes. The boy could only watch as the tip of the knife glinted, held above in a dark promise. There was no way out. No escape. No hard feelings, Leon said. Then he lowered the blade. Chapter 11. Death will come to escort you. The knife never reached its target. Lion's face twisted and his body bent with the force of the blow. Blade fell out of his hand and it whirled in the air, coming to stop in a random corpse. Vladimir moved to deflect a second kick. He proved not fast enough. His sternum was hit with a crack and he smashed on a tree. Luffy gasped. He took quick, panicked breaths and ran trembling hands over his body. He couldn't believe that he was in one piece. He heaved himself up, free of the man's weight and headband's bonds. He looked up. "Ah, Sanji," he exclaimed, mad with relief. His voice came out raspy and weak. The cook smiled despite that, towering over the boy's beaten form. "Nice to see you, shitty rubber," he said. He reached one hand and ruffled his captain's hair. He cringed when he felt dried blood. "I knew you would get in trouble. Can't lay low for a while, can you?" he asked. "Shishishi. Sorry." Luffy apologized. "What? You came with backup," Leon growled. He angrily got up from the pile in which he landed. He kicked away bodies that slid from the top and took out the second, smaller knife. He plunged it in the nearest corpse, relieving his rage. He was covered in blood. His headband was crooked, with strips of material torn and ragged. Bracelets were back on his wrists, coiling like worms. "I have enough of this," he hissed. "Vladimir, stop resting, you lazy prick." The bald man twitched. He stood up, keeping his head low and swaying wide shoulders from left to right. His slumped posture had something dangerous about it. "Don't rush me, trash," he whispered. "I need to rip somebody's guts." He straightened his back, producing a sickening, vicious crack. Sanji cringed, watching as ribs pierced the man's chest and his robe, sticking out like some gruesome barbs. Vladimir didn't wince. "We'll make you pay," Leon promised. He jumped to the cook, slashing with knife at his neck. Sanji had no trouble to avoid it, but his eyes widened when they followed the blade's direction. It was curving in air, descending at Luffy. The blonde bent at impossible angle. He placed hands on the ground and kicked up. He almost hit the mark of Lion's wrist, but the man skillfully took it out of reach. Two of his bracelets slipped. They slid down Sanji's body and curled around his hands, and then yanked them together. The blonde lost support and fell. He lost his breath when his back hit the ground, but he still noticed another attacker approaching. Vladimir pulled his arm back. Before his fist could connect with the fallen man, Luffy outstretched his leg and swept him from his feet. Leon had more luck. He leapt over the rubber appendage and kicked the cook's face, sending him back down. As the latter was about to stand up, the hunter landed on him with a knife. The blade was stopped with a glinting sword. Zoro leered at the man and aimed two katana at his hip. Leon retreated and snarled when another sword was sent his way. "Zoro! Brook!" Luffy cheered at their sight. "Luffy-san!" The musician cried out. He rushed to his captain and leaned down, minimizing the difference in height. "Oh my, Luffy-san. These wounds are serious. Shall I bring you to Chopper?" he asked in worry. "What? A talking skeleton?" Leon smiled. "Little birdie brought unusual friends." "Shut up, you shitty clown." Sanji sneered. He turned to his captain, who flashed him a crooked smile. "Hang on, Luffy," he said. "Don't move for a sec." He crouched on the ground. He was confident that Brook and Shitty Marimo had his back, so he threw nothing of ignoring the enemy. He helped the rubber boy stay in an upright position. It took quite a lot of effort, but he finally managed to do a check on his wounds. He didn't like what he saw. "How is he, cook?" Zoro growled. His eyes never left the smiling hunter and his silent companion, but he was eager for answers. "Don't rush me, Mossbrain." Sanji snapped. "Luffy, we need to get you back on Sunny. Do you hear me?" The captain blinked at him slowly. He was definitely conscious, but he seemed to be losing grasp on reality. There was a drunk-like look in his eyes. It was becoming more and more prominent, which worried the bigger man. Sanji's eyebrows twitched. He turned to the skeleton, who was staring at the boy with concern. "Can you carry him, Brook?" The musician nodded. As he moved to lift his captain from the ground, the violet-haired man made a disapproving sound. "Oh no, 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 no," he chanted in fake sadness. He stepped back and spread both of his arms, so that he touched nearby trees. "You won't take him anywhere." "Well," he tilted his head to one side, "or maybe you will. How about, to your funeral?" The trees creaked. They sprang into motion and unfolded their massive branches, producing ear-splitting cracks. Brook cringed. He tightened his hold on the captain, pressing one of Luffy's ears against his sternum. He covered the other one with his hand. "Devil fruit," he guessed. He watched with growing anticipation as the deadly mass of wood coiled above them, waiting for what was about to come. It wasn't long before the branches plummeted down. The pirates scattered. The ground trembled, whipped by endless blows. Leon laughed. He removed all of his bracelets and morphed them into spiked chains. He cheered them on as they wrestled out of his hands, tearing skin, and rushed after targets. They were aiming for blood. Shit, Sanji cursed. He was busy avoiding hits and was taken aback when a chain suddenly wrapped around his arm. He grabbed it, feeling it dig in his flesh, and immediately tore it away. It was then when he realized that his observation haki wasn't working. Something isn't right, Zoro growled. He noticed the same thing and grew alert. He chopped another round of attacking branches, keeping a close eye on his surroundings. He wasn't disappointed. He caught a glint of a weapon to his right and bounced off a tree, twisting around. He blocked a sneaky knife with his swords. The violet-haired man grinned at him madly. Feeling disoriented, he asked. The swordsman pushed him away and the hunter fell to the ground, laughing. Zoro recognized his mistake. In the path of Leon was Brook and Luffy, the skeleton holding his captain with one arm and faring blows with another. His back was facing the approaching enemy. He couldn't see him coming. Brook! Zoro shouted. The musician turned around. But it was too late. Luffy's eyes widened as he saw the blade inches from Brook's face, and he blocked it with his hand. He felt blinding pain as the knife went through his flesh. Leon grinned, surprised but satisfied, and the skeleton blanched at the sight. He sliced his katana at the hunter. The latter deflected it with a whip of branches. Brook was thrown away and his hold on Luffy loosened. The boy fell to the ground, rolled a few times and came to a stop. He lied there, unmoving. He barely registered that Leon knelt on top of him and equipped the last of his knives. It was a repeat from before. Thought you escaped, birdie. The man cooed. Before he could lower the blade, Lion's arm exploded with blood. He climbed to his feet and staggered, looking with confused, disbelieving gaze at his injured appendage. Even though he didn't use it, his knife was dyed in fresh red. What? The hunter breathed out. He raised his gaze from the wound and set it on the tall, black-haired man, who appeared before him. You, who? The newcomer didn't let him finish. He gripped him by his neck, and squeezed. The straw hat gaped as Lion struggled and spluttered. His shoulder repeatedly pumped blood, squirts getting bigger and darker. It lasted for what felt like ages and then stopped. Trees ceased all movement. Chains morphed back to normal and dropped on the ground, turning into ordinary jewelry. The spurts of blood became slow and narrow. The dark stranger released his hold. He flung the hunter like he would throw trash and watched him fall. Leon tumbled down with wide, bloodshot eyes. His face was whiter than a marble. His expression was frozen in shock and his mouth was twisted, teeth bared. He was dead. The stranger turned away. His icy expression softened when his gaze landed on Luffy. He walked towards him, making the straw hat's blood run cold. My lord, I arrived to escort you, he declared, crouching before the pirate. Zoro's protective instinct yelled bloody murder. He jumped at the newcomer with a swing of his 3 katana, but the man blocked it with a single sword. They stilled for a fraction of a second, frozen in the clash. And then the impossible happened. The swordsman opened his mouth in shock. His hands slackened and Shisui and Kidetsu slipped from his hold. Wado dropped from beneath his teeth and clattered on the ground. Zoro slumped. Someone screamed. ... Disclaimer: this story do not belong to me. The author is What Was in the Blood by Lodowa Korona.